very good evening and welcome to Granada Reports, where we are live from Old Trafford tonight.
Hello, thank you for joining us as we pay tribute to one of the country's finest footballers, the legend that was Sir Bobby Charlton.
And flowers adorn Sir Bobby's statue here, with fans from across the world turning up to pay their respects.
He's just a legend, true gentleman, great footballer.
When I think United, I think of Bobby Charlton.
He's not an hard act to follow. He's an impossible act to follow.
He won the European Cup, the World Cup and the Ballon d'Or. We look back on the life of a legend.
Woke up the following morning and a German read them out, and that's how I found out who was alive and who was dead.
Surviving where 8 of his teammates perished, Sir Bobby's reflections on the Munich air disaster, which left him feeling lucky to be alive.
And the one remaining member of the trinity of Best, Law and Charlton tells us about his friend.
He's achieved this name when television was not as it is today, and he's so well known around the world. He's done fantastic.
Well, good evening from Old Trafford, where tributes to Sir Bobby Charlton are still pouring in as fans pay tribute to one of the greatest footballers of his generation, one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, absolutely. His is a name that's known all over the world, but it is here, of course, that he meant the most. There are tributes here from Burnley fans who've left a shirt, Cardiff fans, but it's Manchester United fans who are feeling this pain the most tonight. This, of course, is the place that he started out as a schoolboy and represented the club for 17 years.
And incredibly, he played more than 750 games in a red shirt.
Our correspondent David Chisnell has been hearing how people are reflecting on that truly remarkable life.
When I think United, I think of Bobby Charlton.
McDougall to Charlton!
He's not an hard act to follow. He's an impossible act to follow.
As the days pass, the tributes build. The life of Sir Bobby Charlton honoured at his Holy Trinity statue outside Old Trafford, following the death of the Manchester United and England legend at the age of 86. Well, the tribute here to Sir Bobby Charlton is ever growing, with a continuous flow of people laying flowers, flags and scarves. And among them all is the ever-present message of one of love, thanks and remembrance as people pay tribute not only to a great footballer, but a great man.
Oh, he's just such a wonderful player. You know, he was everything a footballer should be.
He's just a legend, true gentleman, great footballer.
How emotional did it get you when you heard the news?
Oh, God. Literally tears come down my face.
He will be remembered as being one of the babes that thankfully didn't die. And he's carried the babes flag and our club's flag through all these years.
Today, former United players Gary Neville and Wes Brown, along with Sir Bobby's old teammates Brian Kidd and Paddy Crerand, also paid their own tributes in the Book of Condolence opened at the stadium.
What a great lad he was, Bobby. I mean, I think we're all heartbroken to a great degree. I think you find that here at Old Trafford, most of the fans. What a great player, but what a shy person he was.
Straight into the path of Charlton!
What's his legacy going to be here at United?
He'll be here till God knows, obviously forever.
I remember going home one day when I first got into the first team and told my dad and granddad that I've just met Sir Bobby Charlton, and the first reaction was he's the best that's ever lived.
Over the weekend, Manchester United's teams remembered Sir Bobby, and at today's Champions League press conference, a moment of silence and warm words of reflection.
Bobby was a legend, a giant. His legacy were the standards, the high standards we have to live here every day.
More tributes are planned at Old Trafford over the coming week as this club and this country remembers its greatest. David Chisnell, ITV News, Old Trafford.
Well, throughout the day, more and more names have been added to the Book of Condolence here.
Most are messages of gratitude for his courage after Munich and for being at the centre of so many happy and successful times for fans.
Yeah, further away, David Beckham also expressed his gratitude, saying when he first joined the club as a boy, it was Bobby Charlton who took him under his wing. That was a connection that had been started by Beckham's parents way back in time when they chose his middle name, Robert, after Sir Bobby, a mark of what an impact he'd had.
Well, we are now joined by one of Sir Bobby Charlton's former teammates here at United, Sammy McElroy. Sammy, great to see you. So many tributes have been flooding in since that news of Sir Bobby's death on 4 o'clock on Saturday. Just your reflections of what you've seen over the last 48 hours or so.
It's been unbelievable. I've been down Old Trafford ever since the news yesterday and whatever, and I'm just looking around now, seeing the souvenirs, the flowers, people's sad faces. Everyone had an unbelievable, great word for Sir Bobby, and he was a true gentleman.
Now, Sammy, take us back to when you first signed for United, because you were only 15. Take us back and talk us through, because Sir Bobby was one of the first people to greet you and welcome you and make you feel part of the team.
Actually, Lucy, when I first signed as a 15-year-old, Bobby and Sir Matt, believe it or not, came to see me at the Cliff training ground. And I was on the pitch ready to train, and Sir Bobby came to me and said, listen, you've got an absolutely unbelievable opportunity here at one of the greatest clubs in the world. Make sure you give it 100%.
What was he like?
He was, as I say, he was a fantastic man. I've never ever seen a bad or heard a bad word about him. When he was on the training field, he gave 100%. When he played, he gave 100%. He just glided by people, scored unbelievable goals, right foot, left foot. Just a world-class player, and what he's won in the game as well is unbelievable.
On that point, as a young lad, 15 years old, he'd won the World Cup, the European Cup by that stage. I mean, you must have been starstruck.
Absolutely starstruck, and for him, for Bobby to come down and say, you know, this is a great opportunity for you, I was just absolutely dumbsmacked. I was, but those words stayed with me for a long, long time. And even over the years, you know, he's become an ambassador at the club, record, you know, appearances at the club, record goal scorer up until just recent years. What a player.
And when you made your debut, you actually got to play alongside him.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Again, like a dream come true. To play alongside my hero from back home, George Best, but to actually play with Sir Bobby as well. And he was a captain that day I made my debut. And he just never said anything to me, just go out and enjoy yourself, which was the words from Sir Matt. Sir Bobby brought that on as well.
Just very briefly, I mean, how will you remember him?
As a true gentleman, as a world-class player, and a great person to be around. Simple as that.
And the club?
Well, the club as well. I mean, that's always been in my heart since a young boy back in Belfast, and still is. I still work here on hospitality and ITV. Fantastic.
Sammy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Cheers.
We really appreciate it, especially on such a sad day personally for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
Well, for the nation, of course, 1966 was his finest hour. A distant but lasting memory, that wonderful time when Sir Bobby was part of the only England team ever to win the World Cup. That same year, he won the coveted Ballon d'Or award.
Yeah, he was known for his fitness, his stamina and a ferocious long-range shot. He scored an incredible 249 goals for United, another 49 for England. Our correspondent, Chris Hall, looks back at his life.
Across to Bobby Charlton, another great goal.
Charlton. Oh, what a goal! More for Charlton. Bang!
You could say I started at the top because I came to a fashionable club, Manchester United, you know. I did quite well.
Always understated, but never unsung. To see Bobby Charlton play was a privilege.
He glided over the pitch like a ballerina.
It used to give me a thrill to see him on the move, gliding past people, and then hitting this ball.
It was Matt Busby who brought a promising 15-year-old to Old Trafford in 1953. He honed his skills against the stadium walls after training.
That was the first team that ever came to ask me to play. I said, yeah, sounds all right to me, you know.
For a schoolboy, he had the power to move a ball, or play a ball from one side to the other, which is most unusual at that age.
His debut may have been delayed if he'd told the truth about an injury.
I'd been having treatment on this ankle, and we got the message on the Friday. The boss wants to see you in his office. I went in, he says, how's your ankle, son? You know, and I said, it's great, you know, because I had a feeling what he was going. And I thought, I'm not going to miss this chance. I've been waiting a long time.
His impatience paid off. Charlton scored 2 goals against Charlton on his debut and quickly became a crucial part of the Busby Babes, a youthful, exciting yet dominant team which won back-to-back league championships.
We could lose 6-0 at home in front of 60,000 people, and the following week there still be 60,000 people there because they liked what they saw.
But then it was more of a team game than it is now. It was all for one and one for all in those days.
That team spirit was shattered on a Munich runway. Returning from a European Cup game, their plane crashed, killing 23 passengers, including 8 of Charlton's teammates. Everything that followed, including 2 more league titles and 2 FA Cups, he dedicated to them. The perfect tribute came 10 years later in the European Cup final.
It was something that needed to be done for the respect to be shown properly to the ones that had died in the effort of trying to win it initially.
Charlton! It's there! Bobby Charlton! Charlton! Yes, indeed! What a goal!
It was such an exciting night, even in people in the country, you know, that wanted Man United to win because of what had happened with Munich and the emotion of Sir Matt Busby being there.
And not just because of Munich, this team was special. They never won the treble, but they had the Trinity.
The Law's head, and he's found it. Best jumps over it. Charlton!
Charlton gelled with the genius of George Best and the prolific Dennis Law to leave defenders and supporters spellbound. All 3 won the Ballon d'Or for best player in the world. Bobby was never outshone.
I look to something that can never be, which is to play the perfect match, where every pass goes exactly where you want it to go, possibly scoring 5 or 6, but that's not a perfect game, you know, because probably the perfect game is you'll have to score 10.
I don't particularly like playing against him. I always feel that sometimes he's going to run past me and leave me sat on my backside and I'm going to look a right fool.
Luckily, he got to play with him for their country. Bobby's first England game came just 2 months after Munich.
Tom Finney soon bringing it back again. And Bobby Charlton runs in for a magnificent goal.
His record of 49 goals took nearly as many years to break, but of his 106 caps, 1 game, the World Cup final, has never been equalled.
England have won the World Cup, there's no doubt about that. And Bobby Charlton weeping with emotion.
The best footballers in the world, if for you to come out on top, your team, it's something that'll stay with you forever. In fact, I said to our kid at the final whistle, and he said, well, what about that kid, you know? And I said, well, our lives are never going to be the same again after this.
In retirement, he managed Preston and ran his own soccer school, David Beckham, his star pupil. He also ran a travel agent's.
You have enough money not to have to go out and find a job now.
Well, I've been brought up differently, you know. I've always been busy. I want to keep busy.
Manchester United made him club director. For 6 decades, Bobby was the cornerstone of the club.
It's impossible not to recognise the impact Bobby Charlton has in players. And he walks into that dressing room and he's so humble, magnanimous, loves the club, wants to help anybody that wants to listen to him. That's the impact Bobby's got.
The first night of Old Trafford will always be remembered for those nights at Wembley and the legacy he helped to create.
I can't tell people how much it means to me, you know, to be associated with this club. And there's not a day goes past when people don't come to me and talk about the World Cup. I think you get a bit of pride as a footballer as well, that you think, well, you know, I'm up there with everybody else as being one of the best.
Well, so Bobby was just 20 when a plane carrying the United team, known as the Busby Babes, crashed on takeoff in Munich. He was pulled from the wreckage. 8 of his United teammates died.
He dedicated the achievements that followed to those friends and teammates, saying he felt guilty but lucky to have survived. He spoke to Granada reports many times during the decades that followed. This is his Munich story.
On the fringe of a Munich airport lies the wreckage of an airliner, still smouldering from a crash in which 21 people were killed. Tragedy enough at any time. But in that plane were a group of young men who were almost the personal friends of millions. Manchester United.
The plane just went, and it went, and it went, and it went down the runway. And you started realising, you know, this is not right, there's something wrong with this. And then we hit the perimeter fence.
Busby's Babes, as they were affectionately called, were on their way home from Belgrade when the disaster struck.
I think I put my head down, and the next thing I remembered was waking up away from the aeroplane, and I was sitting strapped into a seat.
I remember one after finding Bobby Charlton and Dennis Wilder, finding them lying unconscious, dragging them away and throwing them over a load of rubbish.
The plane, there was some smoke, and it was just a shell, really. It was awful.
Day breaks over Munich airport, where snow is blanketing the wreckage of the BEA Elizabethan, in which 7 Manchester United footballers, 8 journalists and 6 others lost their lives.
I woke up the following morning and a German read them out, and that's how I found out who was alive and who was dead.
Mark Jones killed, Ray Wood injured, Eddie Coleman killed, David Pegg killed.
The players that didn't survive, they didn't fulfill anything. They were gone. I would think that most people would feel guilty. I feel lucky as well. I mean, so lucky. You wonder why was it me? Why was it not any of the others?
I'd like to say a few words to my mother. I hope she's okay.
Yes.
And taking it well.
Look at her while you're doing it.
She hasn't been down to see me, you know, but it's a bit a long way and I'm all right.
It was such a tragedy because we were such a good team, you know. We'd created a feeling about English football that hadn't been there.
Charlton, and a goal!
Instead of just being a young player who was just breaking into the first team, suddenly everybody was looking at me as though I was one of the experienced ones, and that happened because of the accident. I felt as though suddenly I had responsibility. You know, people expected more of me. That's how it affected me, really. There was a great desire, you know, to make sure that the club had to keep going.
Charlton! It's there! Bobby Charlton!
For years and years afterwards, European matches were the thing that was really important here at the club. You could really say that, not that people would forget Munich, but they would remember it for the right reasons if Man United could actually win the European Cup sometime for them. And it happened in 1968 when we beat Benfica at Wembley.
Manchester United have won the European Champions Cup.
What happened at Munich was an absolute disaster. But in terms of what happened in the future for Manchester United, in terms of the size of the club and how it's got to where it is today, is just marvellous.
Well, after such a harrowing ordeal, it makes it all the more impressive what Sir Bobby went on to achieve.
Yeah, and the toughest of days and months that followed Munich, it was United's assistant manager, Jimmy Murphy, who along with Sir Bobby began to rebuild the team. And Jimmy's son is with us now.
Yeah, Jimmy, your dad and Bobby were very close before and after Munich.
They were.
Tell us about that.
Well, before Munich, Dad used to have Bobby in on a Sunday morning for extra training, where he tried to build up his stamina, explaining that playing for the reserves is completely different than playing for the first team. And he also improved his shooting skills. And Bobby used to say, Jimmy said, hit the ball as hard as you can and as low as you can. Don't bother aiming. If you don't know what you're doing, the goalie won't either.
And then after Munich,
So that's every Sunday virtually.
So much changed then after Munich, though.
Considerably so. Difficult for me to explain because we rarely saw my father in the weeks after Munich because they were staying at Blackpool most of the time. But we used to see Bobby before Munich. He used to come to our house for a coffee with my mother. Different times. I wouldn't do that in these days. But
yeah, different times indeed.
Bobby
Jimmy,
and Wilf McGuinness, they were regulars.
Jim, I'd like to read you a quote from Sir Bobby. He said, I learned a lot from Matt Busby and Alf Ramsey, but everything I achieved in football I owe to one man, Jimmy Murphy. Jimmy got to my guts. He was simply sensational. It was a great bond between the two men. I mean, what was it about the two of them that brought them together so well?
I don't know, they're so completely different because my father, a very, very quiet man, private man, but when he was involved in football, he was a top dog. And Bobby was a very, very shy young boy when he came down. If you watch the Munich programmes, Bobby's in his bed talking about not seeing his mother. He sounds like a 14-year-old, not a 20-year-old. And my dad helped him to mature. And I said, I've sent a card to Norma today. And I've put my father made Bobby into the world-class footballer.
you made him into a world-class man.
What a lovely thing to say.
Because he was just a young boy.
That is such a
She's
lovely...
great. Norma is a lovely person.
That's a great tribute. Thank you.
Jimmy, thank you so much. Well, let's bring in our sports correspondent, Mike Hall. Mike, you've interviewed Sir Bobby a number of times over the years. The thing I always take from conversations that you've had with him, that he was always such a gentleman. He handled himself so well.
Yeah, he really did. I'm going to use a word that has been used so many times in the tributes we've seen here at Old Trafford today, and that is the word gentleman. How many sportsmen, past or present, have you heard described as gentlemen? It doesn't happen, does it? He was always polite, he was always professional, but he was a gentleman on the pitch as well. And if you don't think that's possible, listen to these statistics. 758 appearances for Manchester United, never once sent off, never once booked, and yet still played with such passion. A true one-off.
And now, sadly, only one of the Trinity remains.
Yeah, that's right. The last time we saw flowers like this outside Old Trafford was when George Best passed away, which was 18 years ago. And as you say, sadly now, only Dennis Law remains. And Dennis himself isn't in great health these days, sadly. He has Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. In his last interview with Granada Reports a few years ago now, he spoke to me at some length about his relationship with Sir Bobby. And this feels like an appropriate time to hear what he had to say.
I remember we were travelling in Australia, but this was what, 1967? Was that 9 years after the crash? And all of a sudden we hit a bit of dodgy air, the plane, and we were sat next to each other. He had gripped me round the arm here. I thought, gee, it was like silence in the plane. It just went on for about half an hour or whatever, you know. And then we got out of it, but I can imagine what he was thinking then. I had a mark on my arm for quite a few weeks after that, I can imagine. To recover from the disaster and to achieve what he has done over the years is just fantastic, and probably one of the greatest players that the game has ever seen or will ever see.
Do you believe he would have been a superstar in the modern era, in the Premier League era?
Absolutely, absolutely. Playing on pitches like that, fantastic, isn't it? It's just like a bowling green. So you can imagine not only Sir Bobby, but George Best as well, isn't it, on a pitch like that? They would be fantastic players.
Tell me about Sir Bobby, the man.
Sir Robert was a very quiet gentleman. Yeah, I'm sort of mixed with Best here, but so we were a bit more, I suppose, at it really, but not at it, but a few drinks or whatnot. So, but Bobby was quite, well, I don't know how you put it really.
The consummate professional?
Yes, correct.
Kept out of trouble?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Whereas you two went looking for it?
Well, we'd have a look for it. Sometimes it found us.
Yeah, there's George, there's Bobby and there's Dennis. Well, you're as well off as anybody could possibly wish to be.
Don't forget, he's achieved this name when television was not as it is today, and he's so well known around the world, not just in Britain or Europe, whatever. And that is really before television came in, so he's done fantastic.
Yeah, so many memories. Well, before we go, let's just pause to reflect on the enormous contribution Sir Bobby made to the nation and to football.
Well, tomorrow United play here in the Champions League. So many more tributes will follow, and they will stand in silence to remember him.
The overriding feeling here tonight is one of gratitude from Manchester United for so much success along the way, and from the nation for England's only ever World Cup.
So Bobby, we salute you.
And we thank you. Good night.
You could say I started at the top because I came to a fashionable club, Manchester United, you know. I did quite well.
Oh, what a goal! Charlton going through here like a greyhound. Number 2.
Football to me is just my life, you know. I eat, sleep and drink football. When I wake up in the morning, I think who we're playing next Saturday, who we're playing today. You know, I think of nothing else.
Charlton! It's there! Bobby Charlton!
I
can't tell people how much it means to me, you know, to be associated with this club.
Maybe a shot from Charlton. It's worth trying.
It was the highest peak you can ever reach as a football. And of course, the greatest sporting moment that's ever happened in this country. The best footballers in the world. For you to come out on top, your team, it's something that'll stay with you forever.
Mum, wet wipes, toilet or bin?
Bin. Why?
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Hello there. Well, after Storm Babette, the tolerances of river levels are very low at the moment. So today, without any rain, was a very welcome change. We had 100 millimetres of rain falling in Oldham and Rochdale between midnight on Thursday and midnight on Saturday. That was the period that Storm Babette was affecting us mostly. And so, although this week is going to be unsettled, it won't be as bad as last week, but will exacerbate any problems, any swollen rivers, or still any flooding that may linger. Average temperatures, though, throughout the week and turning quite blustery by weekend. So then today we had a brief ridge of high pressure in charge. That's now sliding away. Low pressures remain throughout the week, just milling around. A brief respite with between systems on Wednesday, and then low pressure anchors itself across the UK on Friday, so turning things a bit breezy again. But rewinding to the next few hours, it's a largely dry evening, 1 or 2 showers here and there, but steadily moving through and then turning wetter later in the night. But it will keep moving, so it's not going to be anything drastic. It's just going to be normal sorts of rainfall if normal is a thing. And temperatures will be well up on where they were last night. It's going to feel noticeably warmer, because last night, of course, we had that ice warning and we got down to 3 Celsius in places. So the cloud and rain insulates us overnight tonight, around 9 or 10 Celsius there. Bit of a gloomy start to the day tomorrow. Cloud and some rain, which will be quite heavy and persistent. Brightening up through parts of Cumbria and the north and western slice of the region later, but still some heavier rain around Greater Manchester eastwards, and certainly worse east of the Pennines. Temperatures down on today's values. And then as we head into the rest of the week, well, as I say, fine on Wednesday, some good sunny spells, but sunny spells and showers through Thursday and Friday, and getting breezier on Friday. Bye-bye.
Cleaned up well.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.